If you live long enough, you'll make mistakes. But if you learn from them, you'll be a better person. It's how you handle adversity, not how it affects you. The main thing is never quit, never quit, never quit. No one can change yesterday, but we can all change tomorrow. We cannot build our own future without helping others to build theirs. The road to tyranny, we must never forget, begins with the destruction of the truth. Behind every great man there stands a great woman. Behind every great woman is a great behind. You have to make a conscious decision to change for your own well-being and that of your family and your country. Everybody counts, everybody deserves a chance, everybody has a responsible role to play, and we all do better when we work together. I still believe in a place called hope. That all depends on what is. The Constitution is a radical document. It is the job of the government to rein in people's rights. You can put wings on a pig, but you don't make it an eagle. Any president that lies to the American people should have to resign. I can spend your money better than you can. I believe that this country's policies should be heavily biased in favor of non-discrimination. Character is a journey, not a destination. Our immigration policy is focused in 4 areas. First, strengthening border control. Second, protecting American jobs by enforcing laws against illegal immigrants at the workplace. Third, deporting criminal and deportable aliens. Fourth, giving assistance to states who need it, and denying illegal aliens benefits for public services or welfare. Yesterday is yesterday. If we try to recapture it, we will only lose tomorrow. Great rewards will come to those who can live together, learn together, work together, forge new ties that bind together. The real differences around the world today are not between Jews and Arabs, Protestants and Catholics, Muslims, Croats, and Serbs. The real differences are between those who embrace peace and those who would destroy it. Between those who look to the future and those who cling to the past. Between those who open their arms and those who are determined to clench their fists. I did not have sexual relations with that woman just because you can't do everything. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do what you can. When our memories outweigh our dreams, it is then that we become old. We must say no to illegal immigration so we can continue to say yes to legal immigration. Keep your eyes on the prize and don't turn back. I am trying to be honest with you, and it hurts me. Now, politics gives guys so much power that they tend to behave badly around women. And I hope I never get into that. Strength and wisdom are not opposing values. Character doesn't matter. The problem with any ideology is that it gives you the answer before you examine the evidence. If you want to live like a Republican, vote like a Democrat. The purpose of politics is to give people tools to make the most of their lives. Life's real victories must be shared. The era of big government is over. Government is not the problem, and government is not the solution. We, the American people, we are the solution. The problem with ideology is if you got an ideology, you already got your mind made up, you know all the answers, and that makes evidence irrelevant and argument a waste of time, so you tend to govern by assertion and attack. The problem with that is that discourages thinking and gives you bad results. I am opposed to abortion and to government funding of abortions. We should not spend state funds on abortions because so many people believe abortion is wrong. I want our nation to take responsibility to make sure that every single child can look out the window in the morning and see a whole community getting up and going to work. We want these young people to know the thrill of the first paycheck, the challenge of starting that first business, the pride in following in a parent's footsteps. Today's possibilities are not tomorrow's guarantees. Education no longer stops on graduation day. We must demand excellence at every level of education. It simply doesn't make any sense for us to have illegal aliens in our custody in our courts and then let them go back to living here illegally. That's wrong, and we should stop it. History will remember Nelson Mandela as a champion for human dignity and freedom, for peace and reconciliation. When we got organized as a country and we wrote a fairly radical constitution with a radical Bill of Rights, giving a radical amount of individual freedom to Americans, it was assumed that the Americans who had that freedom would use it responsibly. that everybody can do something, without regard to how old or young they are, rich or poor or middle class they are, how busy or not busy they are, and what level skills they have. Everyone can do something. And everybody should do something. And if you do it, you'll be happier. We must teach our children to resolve their conflicts with words, not weapons. The risk is that as we come out of this recession, we'll have so much debt to finance, we'll either have to have inflation or very high interest rates to continue to borrow the money, or both. That's a risk. Terrorists are as big a threat to our future, perhaps bigger, than organized crime. Most illegal immigrants are not by nature lawbreakers. Most are looking for the chance to live in dignity. Nevertheless, we must continue to discourage illegal immigration, for it undermines control of our borders, and even more punishes hard-working people who play by the rules and who wait for their turn to come to the United States. Therefore, we must enforce our laws, but we will do so with justice and fairness. There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured with what is right in America. When times are tough and people are frustrated and angry and hurting and uncertain, the politics of constant conflict may be good. But what is good politics does not necessarily work in the real world. What works in the real world is cooperation. I tried marijuana once. I did not inhale. If you want to have a good life, you have to have some constructive outlet for your feelings. Abortion should not only be safe and legal, it should be rare. Costs the taxpayers of the United States a lot of money. And it's unfair to Americans who are working every day to pay their own bills. It's also unfair to a lot of people who have waited in line for years and years in other countries to be legal immigrants. I am in support of the NRA position on gun control. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. We can't renew America unless more of us, I mean all of us, are willing to join churches. Now, people ask me all the time how we got 4 surplus budgets in a row. What new ideas did we bring to Washington? I always give a one-word answer: arithmetic. Sarah, there's a government inside the government, and I don't control it. The most powerful people on earth are focus groups. There is nothing more precious to a parent than a child, and nothing more important to our future than the safety of all our children. I misled people, including even my wife. Our new immigrants must be part of our One America. After all, they're revitalizing our cities, they're energizing our culture, they're building up our economy. We have a responsibility to make them welcome here, and they have a responsibility to enter the mainstream of American life. That means learning English and learning about our democratic system of government. There are now long waiting lines of immigrants that are trying to do just that. Therefore, our budget significantly expands our efforts to help them meet their responsibility. I hope you will support it. So much of modern politics is focused not on honest differences of policy but on personal attacks. I mean, this idea that somebody we disagree with on economic or social policy or something we have to turn into some kind of ogre or demon, I think, is a mistake. I mean, it's like telling the American people or half the American people that don't agree with you they're all fools. That's just not true. There are 2 kinds of people in the world. Those who have seen the Taj Mahal and love it, and those who have not seen the Taj and love it. Promising too much can be as cruel as caring too little. Success is not the measure of a man, but a triumph over those who choose to hold him back. Being president is a little like being the groundskeeper at a cemetery. There's plenty of people below you, but no one's listening. We are very frustrated because we have a Supreme Court that seems determined to say that the wealthier have more right to free speech than the rest of us. For example, they say you couldn't stop me from spending all the money I've saved over the last 5 years on Hillary's campaign if I wanted to, even though it would clearly violate the spirit of campaign finance reform. Well, first of all, I think that a lot of the voters who are voting for the Tea Party candidates have really good impulses. That is, they believe that for years and years and years, the people with wealth and power or government power have done well and ordinary people have not. That's true. Let's create an integrated global community where we have shared benefits and responsibilities, and we don't fight because of our differences. Work is about more than making a living, as vital as that is. It's fundamental to human dignity, to our sense of self-worth as useful, independent, free people. On Bill Clinton, I have a simple question. Who's the last president to give you a balanced budget? Leadership means bringing people together in pursuit of a common cause, developing a plan to achieve it, and staying with it until the goal is achieved. I've been in politics long enough to expect criticism and hostility. But I was unprepared for the hatred I get from Christians. Why do Christians hate so much? Sometimes there is a difference in what is legal and what ought to be done. If we want to invest in the prosperity of our nation, we must invest in the education of our children so that their talents may be fully employed. One of the real dilemmas we have in our country and around the world is that what works in politics is organization and conflict. That is, drawing the sharp distinctions. But in real life, what works is networks and cooperation. And we need victories in real life, so we've got to get back to networks and cooperation, not just conflict. But politics has always been about conflict, and in the coverage of politics, information dissemination tends to be organized around conflict as well. You know, by the time you become the leader of a country, someone else makes all the decisions. You may find you can get away with virtual presidents, virtual prime ministers, virtual everything. You can't say you love your country and hate your government. Turning 50 gives me more yesterdays than tomorrows. Globalization is not something that we can hold off or turn off. It is the economic equivalent of a force of nature, like wind or water. I believe that a worthwhile life is defined by a kind of spiritual journey and a sense of obligation. I admire that about the Republicans. The evidence does not faze them. They are not bothered at all by the facts. When I took office, only high-energy physicists had ever heard of what is called the World Wide Web. Now even my cat has its own page. When personal freedom's being abused, you have to move to limit it. That's what we did in the announcement I made last weekend on the public housing projects, about how we're going to have weapon sweeps. When I first came to Washington in the 1960s, even at the height of the Vietnam War, until the end there in '68, there was a certain climate of cooperation. And then in the late 60s and in through the 70s, politics began getting more mean. And then from the 80s on it seemed to be institutionalized, this personal attack business. And I just hate it. New information and communications technologies can improve the quality of life for people with disabilities, but only if such technologies are designed from the beginning so that everyone can use them. Given the explosive growth in the use of the World Wide Web for publishing, electronic commerce, lifelong learning, and the delivery of government services, it is vital that the web be accessible to everyone. If you wanted to create jobs in a way that has minimal effect on the deficit but has government action, the two best things you could do are the infrastructure bank and a simple SBA-like loan guarantee for all building retrofits, where the contractor or the energy service company guarantees the savings. So that allows the bank to loan money to let a school or a college or a hospital or a museum or a commercial building unencumbered by debt to loan it on terms that are longer, so you can pay it back only from your utility savings. You could create 1 million jobs doing that. Politics is not religion, and we should govern on the basis of evidence, not theology. Thanks to the leadership of Vice President Gore, we have a government for the information age, once again a government that is a progressive instrument of the common good, rooted in our oldest values of opportunity, responsibility, and community, devoted to fiscal responsibility, determined to give our people the tools they need to make the most of their own lives in the 21st century. A 21st century government for 21st century America. In our hearts and in our laws, we must treat all our people with fairness and dignity, regardless of their race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. When we make college more affordable, we make the American dream more achievable. I want to say to you is that James Madison and Thomas Jefferson did not intend to drive a stake in the heart of religion and to drive it out of our public life. What they intended to do was to set up a system so that we could bring religion into our public life and into our private life without any of us telling the other what to do. We all do better when we work together. Our differences do matter, but our common humanity matters more. We should stay on the right track to the 21st century. Opportunity alone is not enough. I want to build an America in the 21st century in which all Americans take personal responsibility for themselves, their families, their communities, and their country. The divide of race has been America's constant curse. Each new wave of immigrants gives new targets to old prejudices. Prejudice and contempt, cloaked in the pretense of religious or political conviction, are no different. They have nearly destroyed us in the past. They plague us still. They fuel the fanaticism of terror. They torment the lives of millions in fractured nations around the world. These obsessions cripple both those who are hated and, of course, those who hate, robbing both of what they might become. We cannot idealize technology. Technology is only and always the reflection of our own imagination, and its uses must be conditioned by our own values. Technology can help cure diseases, but we can prevent a lot of diseases by old-fashioned changes in behavior. What really happened in Vietnam was all these things are away games for the American military. We're not on our home turf, which means to succeed there has to be a partner. And the definition of partnership is someone willing to risk their lives in their home area to prevail because they think it's necessary to build a decent life and a better life for their people. More important than the deficit, more important than healthcare, more important than anything, we have got to do something about our energy strategy. Because if we permit the climate to continue to warm at an unsustainable rate, and if we keep on doing what we're doing until we're out of oil and we haven't made the transition, then it's inconceivable to me that our children and grandchildren will be able to maintain the American way of life and that the world won't be much fuller of resource-based wars of all kinds. Our bridge to the future must include bridges to other nations, because we remain the world's indispensable nation to advance prosperity, peace, and freedom, and to keep our own children safe from the dangers of terror and weapons of mass destruction. More people can be great leaders than think they can, but they need a purpose greater than themselves. Though we march to the music of our time, our mission is timeless. Every American should have above average income, and my administration is going to see they get it. The first thing you ought to do when you find yourself in a hole is quit digging. Instead, they are looking for a bigger shovel. With almost no time to decide, they gave the entire country an incalculable gift. They saved the Capitol from attack. They saved God knows how many lives. They saved the terrorists from claiming the symbolic victory of smashing the center of American government. And they did it as citizens. They allowed us to survive as a country that could fight terror and still maintain liberty and still welcome people from all over the world from every religion and race and culture as long as they shared our values, because ordinary people given no time at all to decide did the right thing. America's greatness depends on the ability of its citizens to make the most of their lives. Americans with disabilities are an enormous, often untapped reservoir of that potential. We're trying to get rapid tests that give you results when you're right there on site at an affordable price. 90% of the HIV-positive people in the world don't know they have the infection. An enormous amount of infections are being perpetrated by people who don't know they themselves are HIV positive. Sometimes I feel like the fire hydrant looking at a pack of dogs. I like the job. That's what I'll miss the most. I'm not sure anybody ever liked this as much as I've liked it. We Democrats have got to be strong. When we look weak in a time where people feel insecure, we lose. When people feel uncertain, they'd rather have somebody who's strong and wrong than somebody who's weak and right. We know that when we protect our oceans, we're protecting our future. People should really take care when they vote and pay more attention to what people say they're going to do instead of just how they feel about how things are going. One of the things that all kids are taught by their parents is this: old sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The secret to living a full life with no regrets and to staying young is to figure out what you believe in and fight for it. If you lose, don't give up. If you win, raise the bar and then rear back and do something else. And remember that, with the accumulation of years, our responsibilities to the future grow greater, not less. I have never had sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. I've never had an affair with her. On Earth Day, I made a commitment to reduce our emissions of greenhouse gases to 1990 levels by the year 2000. And I asked for a blueprint on how to achieve this goal. in concert with all other nations, we simply must halt global warming. It is a threat to our health, to our ecology, and to our economy. I know that the precise magnitude and patterns of climate change cannot be fully predicted. But global warming clearly is a growing, long-term threat with profound consequences. And make no mistake about it, it will take decades to reverse. I always get nervous when people start talking about legacies. I've gained first-hand knowledge of the challenges faced by people with disabilities. It's made me understand that those of us who have full use of our physical faculties owe an enormous amount of respect and sensitivity to people who don't. My fellow Americans, all of us in this grand hall and everybody watching at home, when we vote in this election, we'll be deciding what kind of country we want to live in. If you want a winner-take-all, you run your own society, you should support the Republican ticket. But if you want a country of shared opportunities and shared responsibility, a we're-all-in-this-together society, you should vote for Barack Obama and Joe Biden. If the personal freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution inhibit the government's ability to govern the people, we should look to limit those guarantees. Our nation owes a lasting debt of gratitude to all those selfless members of our armed forces who have risked their own freedom and safety to defend the lives and liberty of others. Music, to me, is representative of everything I like most in life. It's beautiful and fun, but very rigorous. If you wanted to be good, you had to work like crazy. It was a real relationship between effort and reward. My musical life experiences were just as important to me, in terms of forming my development, as my political experiences or my academic life. We should make it a crime even to attempt to pollute. Our children should grow up next to parks, not poison. Taxing less and spending more. It's fun in the short run, but it's a recipe for disaster. It is important to me that everybody who has been hurt know that the sorrow I feel is genuine. First and most important, my family, my friends, my staff, my cabinet, Monica Lewinsky and her family, and the American people. I have asked all for their forgiveness. It is a commonplace of American life that immigrants have made our country great and continue to make a very important contribution to the fabric of American life. But under the pressures we face today, we can't afford to lose control of our borders or to take on new financial burdens at a time when we are not adequately providing for the jobs, the health care, and the education of our own people. Therefore, immigration must be a priority for this administration. Americans long to be united. After 9/11, we all just wanted to be one nation. Not a single American on September the 12th, 2001, cared who won the next presidential election. It might surprise you to know I think I raised them too much. Our mission in this new century is clear. For good or ill, we live in an interdependent world. We can't escape each other. Therefore, we have to spend our lives building a global community of shared responsibilities, shared values, shared benefits. Undeniably, character does count for our citizens, our communities, and our nation, and this week we celebrate the importance of character in our individual lives. Core ethical values of trustworthiness, fairness, responsibility, caring, respect, and citizenship form the foundation of our democracy, our economy, and our society. Instilling sound character in our children is essential to maintaining the strength of our nation into the 21st century. I figured if I could get really good people who were going to be able to have a big impact in the world over the next decade to come together once a year for 10 years and actually sign a pledge to take action themselves, if we did that every year for 10 years we could do a lot of good in the world. That's the difference between my meeting and any other. If you don't want to promise to do something, don't come to my meeting, stay home. The simple fact is that we must not and we will not surrender our borders to those who wish to exploit our history of compassion and justice. I hate that man Obama more than any man I've ever met, more than any man who ever lived. We can't afford to lose control of our own borders or to take on new financial burdens at a time when we are not adequately providing for the jobs, the health care, and the education of our own people. We are a nation of immigrants. But we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it. The traditional values of Islam, devotion to faith and good works, to family and society, are in harmony with the best of American ideals. Literacy is not a luxury, it is a right and a responsibility. If our world is to meet the challenges of the 21st century, we must harness the energy and creativity of all our citizens. Supporters of capital punishment bear a special responsibility to ensure the fairness of this irreversible punishment. Islam is one of the fastest growing faiths within America, and America needs to show that we're not anti-Islam. We are for people being free and having opportunity everywhere. We did that in Bosnia, we did that in Kosovo, we did that in numerous other places in the world. For years ago, nobody but nuclear physicists had ever heard of the internet. Today, even my cat, Socks, has his own web page. I'm amazed at that. I meet kids all the time, been talking to my cat on the internet. NASA even sent Chuck Berry's music on a space probe searching for intelligent life in outer space. Well, now, if they're out there, they're duck walking. Shakespeare wrote, Einstein thought, Ataturk built. The great thing about not being president anymore is I can say whatever I want about anything. Of course, nobody really cares what I say. And now I have the worst of all worlds. My wife has become the Secretary of State, so no one really cares what I say, unless I mess up. Our relationship would never vary from its allegiance to the shared values, the shared religious heritage, the shared democratic politics which have made the relationship between the United States and Israel a special, even on occasion a wonderful relationship. The United States admires Israel for all that it has overcome and for all that it has accomplished. We are proud of the strong bond we have forged with Israel, based on our shared values and ideals. That unique relationship will endure just as Israel has endured. Nobody is right all the time, and even a broken clock is right twice a day. I believe that those who promote discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or any other grounds are gravely mistaken about the values that make our nation strong. I will continue to move my administration in the direction of compassion, acceptance, and understanding. What we need to do is to have a sensible approach to immigration. It needs to be open. It needs to be non-dogmatic and non-bigoted. We need to be firm but reasonable in the way we deal with the problem of illegal immigration. And we need to try to get as many of our immigrants who want to do so to become citizens as quickly as possible, so that the American people will all see that this is a part of the process of American history, which is a good one for our country. When personal freedom's being abused, you have to move to limit it.